talking about the dependency on supplier, actually DORA is addressing that fact that if a supplier disappears, what are you doing about it? So I think this regulation covers that part, and it was a very good point made. I think many firms have produced policies, all the mapping, have created all the governance, which is what we do always when we have a new regulation. But we always fell on operationalizing the controls, and I think that's the gap that we have. DORA is forcing a shift from documentation to demonstrate capability, and I think that's the change. And if we look at some of the components on the ICT risk management, so most of the organizations report we have ICT risk framework or policy in place. We have updated our risk taxonomy based on the requirements. We have mapped critical functions, including all the definitions. I think adding the definition of what a critical function was very difficult because it can be interpreted in many ways, and you can create a very broad description, and you need to align. And talking about fragmentation, you need to align the definition with all your risk departments on the difference from business continuity managed with the risk, first line risk, second line risk, and understand what does it mean a critical function and what is DORA saying in regards to that. So what is actually happening, or what I can see, is that the risk registers are updated, but the control owners doesn't know which controls are related to DORA and what is expected and how to test them, because we have created this new layer of controls. I think the criticality assessment, again, due to the definitions, are inconsistent because they're interpreted in different ways, and many firms still rely on Excel-based inventories, which is a problem because you don't know which one is the source of truth. And that one of the things also is we failed is in the continuous monitoring, because as you mentioned, it's done quarterly or annual and it's not in real time, which can also create some weaknesses around this area. The other component is the incident reporting, very good in paper, but when you are applying into it, there is more confusion in the practical side of it. We have incident classification models aligned to DORA, and we have made the 4 hours initial notification requirement. But what actually is happening is that we're still arguing internally about what is a major incident, which is one of the requirements in DORA, and you're defining. And I personally have been there, and we have been having major discussions on how do we classify a major incident, and how we definition, and where do we also, how do we scope it? Because you can create long definitions, but then you will have to cover the bigger areas. I think SOC teams and compliance teams often don't share the same thresholds, and I think that's also problematic. Again, talking about fragmentation. Many firms cannot produce DORA compliant incident report between the 24 hours, which is required. And many companies' escalation paths are unclear, especially when we are outside the business hours. And this on the third party risk, because that you are DORA, that financial institutions are regulated by DORA. That doesn't mean that if you are not a financial institution, you will not have DORA requirements. You can be indirectly regulated, because if you are providing services to financial institution in Europe, they will set the requirements via the contract. So they will add some clauses that you will need to be DORA compliant, and that could be the right to audit. It could be also in terms of critical function information reports, and what are and some of components of the due diligence process as well. They can add some additional questions because we need to include that. So most of the companies have completed the ICT third parties register, which is required. They have uploaded all the contracts, and they have created some addendums to the current contracts, because most companies has to do, but most of the inventories are incomplete, especially for shadow IT and fourth party, because you need to, if the provider is not providing back-to-back service, you need to understand the full value chain. So I mean, you can always outsource the activity, but not the responsibility will rely always on you.